Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace, where we go live or upload another video. Ed's going to be joining us in a short period of time. I have a special guest for you, one of my good friends, Dr. Darrin Porcher, retired New York City police lieutenant. I worked with him in the field. We were in the academy together, so we trained in the same class in 1991. He's my brother. I've known him for over 30 years. He is on location out front of Nancy Guthrie's home. But what we're going to find out from him is what took place last night with the FBI and the federal warrants that were served at that Airbnb home 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. And that we saw the Range Rover, a very late model Range Rover, 2024 or 2025. We saw it flatbedded away. Crime scene was out at the back of that truck. Darrin is live on location outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. I introduce him right now, my good friend Darrin Porcher. Thank you, Darrin.
Thanks for having me, Ron. Okay, let's go to the beginning of this case. When we start this off, we had a situation whereas Nancy was dropped off at her house by one of her relatives. And after being dropped off at the house by one of her relatives, uh, she was in the house for a period of time, and there was an abduction that occurred. We all saw the video as it related to the assailant at the front door that was wearing the black gloves, the ski mask, the backpack, a holster, attempting to get into the house from the front door. That's only a 20-second video. The video doesn't show you where the entry was made. And it's very a unique situation in terms of the video because the Nest cameras that were in the house were not active because she no longer had a subscription.
Right.
And what Google did, because Google is the parent company of Nest, they had a contingent of engineers that were able that was actually deleted. And what made this such a challenge is because since there was no subscription, it was now in code. It was in a coded language. So the engineers had to reformat that code and configure this into a digital format in video. It was very challenging. The odds were against them, but they were successful. They got it done. That being said, we got the 20-second video, and what it shows you is it shows you a backpack, uh, and it shows you a backpack, it shows you the mask, it shows you sneakers, and it shows you a holster. The backpack, which is an Ozark Trail backpack, is something that's sold at Walmart. The holster is a strategy brand holster that's also sold at Walmart. Now, what happens with why this is important is because the investigators are going to want to connect with the law enforcement component within Walmart to find out when these items were sold. Now, many people will say, "Hey, look, if cash is used, it's not trackable." That's not true because whenever you make a purchase at Walmart, the item is entered into a system. So on that same transaction would have both the strategy holster and the Ozark Trail backpack in the same on the same receipt. So what law enforcement would do in a situation like that is they would go to the video and find out when that person made the purchase. Now, one of the things that people question is, was the intent an abduction? Was it a burglary that went bad? That's something that we don't know. But the one thing I can tell you is this. When we look at this, I personally believe that this is a home invasion. And when we speak to home invasions or burglaries, when we speak to burglaries, there's two factions that you want to look into. One, we have a daytime burglar and we have a nighttime burglar, two totally different skill sets. The daytime burglar would be someone that actually conducts a level of surveillance at the location to see if there's no one there, and then they'll enter the residence, they'll take what they want, and then they'll leave. there's no intent on embarking upon a campaign of violence. And I give you an example. We've seen a lot of these celebrities, such as Patrick Mahomes, singers, etc., in Los Angeles, that have had their homes burglarized when they were on tour, doing shows, etc. Now, the nighttime burglar is very different. The nighttime burglar is a person that understands that the propensity exists for there to be an individual in the house, and that nighttime burglar is willing to use force. We had an individual that went into the house, abducted Nancy Guthrie, and we also had blood that was on the front porch. I want to say we had a blood trail that led from inside of the house to the front porch. So it's clear that there was a level of violence attached to this. In addition to that, Nancy had an Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch was aligned with her pacemaker. And so during that 2 a.m. hour, the Apple Watch was disconnected from the pacemaker, and we believe that is the point of time when the abduction occurred. Now, we only had the one individual that was on camera, but the FBI is working to try to do the same thing as it relates to the what was done with the Google engineers to reformat what was erased based on the data with the unsubscribed information on the Nest cameras. This is an arduous task. The first transformation of video happened in 9 days. It took them a long time.
Hmm.
The second, which is going to focus on the cameras that are on the interior of the house, is still ongoing. They haven't had success with this, but they're working on it. So another piece to that is this. I want to say the ground here is referred to as hard pack. Okay, a lot of people will say, well, hey, why don't you have a tire? Do you have tire prints? Do you have footprints? And the answer is no, because this hard pack is very densely compressed sand, and you're just not going to be able to get a footprint, nor will you be able to get tire prints off of this landscape here. Outside on this roadway, once you leave the pathway from Nancy's house and you get to this roadway, this is basically an asphalt surface. It's a
Right.
hard surface. But in addition to that, Nancy weighed roughly 150 pounds. So it was impossible for the assailant to remove her on his own and bring her outside of and bring her outside. So he had to have assistance. In addition to that, he had to have a vehicle. So we don't know where the vehicle pulled in, because I just want to pan around and show you what the neighborhood looks like. You don't have surveillance cameras. I mean, there's a ton of media here, don't get me wrong. But at
Right.
the same token, you do not have surveillance cameras. You're going to have to go a distance before you get to surveillance cameras. So haven't captured video to support if there was a vehicle, who the co-conspirators are. So as we move forward in the investigation, there's one of the things that the investigators are looking to do is embark upon something we refer to as geofencing.
Mm.
Geofencing is when you set it's a perimeter that's set up to extract all of the cell phone information in a particular area. This is important because to dump a cell phone tower takes a lot. There's a lot involved in that. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. But however, we're able to pinpoint the time in which we believe the abduction occurred, which was in the 2 a.m. hour. So when you look at an area such as this during the 2 a.m. hour, you're going to have very limited cell phone traffic at that particular time. That works to the advantage of law enforcement. So as we fast forward, there's been three separate instances of detainment. We had the first instance of detainment involved an Amazon delivery person that was taken into custody 60 miles away from here in an area, a city called Rio Rico,
Mhm.
which is just short of the Mexican border. They took him into custody, and the belief of why he was taken into custody is based on, as what I mentioned earlier, the geofencing. The geofencing was able to capture his cell phone signal at this particular location. That's why they detained him, but they found out that he was not a suspect, so they let him go. We fast forward And now we move to what happened just yesterday, whereas we had two separate apprehensions. We had the first apprehension that consisted of two males and a mother, which is approximately 2 miles away from here. It's not that far. So I want to say it's an 8 minute drive. It took me 8 minutes to drive from here to the location where these individuals were apprehended in a
This is
search
last night.
warrant.
This is last night, right, Darrin?
Yes,
Okay.
they were detained and they were set free. The second apprehension happened at a place called Culver's, which is a fast food restaurant relatively close to here, and that's the parking lot where you see the gray Range Rover that.
Okay, we lost him. I don't know what happened. He might have clicked out. He should come back. Hey guys, if you like this type of perspective, Dr. Darrin, great friend of mine. Again, I've known him for over 30 years. I'd say going on 35 years. We went to the police academy together, and this is the description. He was fast forwarding from the beginning to this spot right here, where they had this Range Rover in FBI custody. It looked like they were looking for something in the back of this Range Rover. Yellow tarp was being held up by the sheriff's department, and Darrin was just about to get into it. He's going to join us back in front of Nancy Guthrie's home. He's been on the ground, reporter for Fox News, and he does many hits on different television stations. He's on CNN. He's on MSNBC. Here, got
Ron,
you back.
I apologize. Can you see me again?
Yeah, I could see you. I could see you're fine.
Okay. Okay, cool. I want to go over this part with you. That was actually
We just got to the car. We were about to talking about the Range Rover
okay.
in the
So,
car.
all right. So, do you have a clear line of sight of me?
Absolutely,
Okay,
100%.
excellent. So now we have the gray Range Rover, and the FBI conducted the stop of this vehicle. They set up a series of tarps, and I wasn't sure as to why that was done because the first thing I think of is, were they looking to cover the identity of the individual, or were they looking to mask the content that was removed from the vehicle? I couldn't give you a clear answer on that. But just as the first group of people, the two males and the mother, were detained and released, the same held true with the Range Rover. And as it relates to the Range Rover, um now we're still in a place where we're trying to figure this out because just my hypothesis on this was I believe that the Range Rover was possibly a vehicle that was used to remove Nancy Guthrie from the scene, and that's kind of where we are with this thing. I think we're at the beginning of the investigation, and the investigational path is going to continue to move forward, but I genuinely believe that this was a burglary that went wrong, and the intent was not for this to be a kidnapping. The most people will say, "Hey, look, burglars do not remove people," and that's true. I think that this was a situation where the burglar panicked, and that's when he removed the body because, or I should say, Nancy Guthrie, because he didn't want her to be found by police. And I genuinely believe that she's no longer here with us because she takes heart medication, and she needs to have that heart medication within 24 hours, and that heart medication is not with her. This is an 84-year-old woman in challenging health. We're doing the best that we can in law enforcement to try to find her, but it seems like we're coming up on a lot of dead ends, and I think it's somewhat of an embarrassment for law enforcement to stop a total of five different people on three different occasions, and have these individuals released. And it begs the question of what is the investigational process?
Yeah, Darrin, that was excellent. Overview of this entire case. You went from the beginning right to the end. There's many questions in between. We talked about. I saw a couple of your hits that you did yesterday and today, and they're fantastic. The one point that a lot of
Hello,
people,
Ronnie.
yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Darrin? All right, Darrin, can you hear me? All right. I guess he can't hear me. But we're on the screen here. And what I wanted to ask him is,
Ronnie, my apologies. The cell service is not good here.
all right,
Can
can
you
you
hear
hear
me?
me? I can hear you.
Because I
Yes.
can't hear you.
Hmm. Hold on a second. Let me see what I can do on your end. Stand by. Hold on. All right. Um, I guess audio is not good on his end. He might not have the audio engaged, but it is what it is. But the question I did want to ask him, and it's just a shame that he's not getting this. Technical difficulties happen. You know, when you have cell service is kind of spotty there. But hopefully Darrin can come back, enable the microphone so he can hear me in his ear. What I was going to ask him is about the blood. The blood trail was there when the first call came into 911. The first officers on the scene saw the blood on Nancy Guthrie's entryway to her home. I'm talking about the responding police officers. I was a patrol police officer for 5 years. I answered radio calls for home invasions. I've experienced quite a few of these things. And when you see blood or forced entry, or it's a special category person where they have age, health issues, psychological or mental issues, these are what we call special category missings. And what I wanted to ask Dr. Darrin, because he's a retired supervisor, he's a lieutenant with the New York City Police Department when he was active. I wanted to ask him if this sheriff's department took a huge mistake right from the get-go by not securing that crime scene. And that's what I wanted to ask him. And I'm so pissed that he didn't, that he wasn't able to hear me, but I'm going to text him real quick and see if he'll come back. But let's take a look at a little bit of his video as I can get him back up on the screen. So this is Dr. Darrin from about 10 hours ago on Fox.
Taken down outside of the residence. To break down what we do know,
bear with me,
this morning is Darrin Porcher, former NYPD lieutenant, joining us live there in Tucson. Good morning to you, Darrin.
Good morning, and thanks for having me as a guest.
Absolutely. Well, let's just start. There were several developments overnight there. What do we know as of this morning?
Okay, as we parse this out, we had a magistrate that signed off on a search warrant, which resulted in a successful execution, taking 3 individuals into custody. I want to say just short of 2 miles away from Nancy's house. And then we had a 4th individual that was taken into custody at a Culver's fast food restaurant that was several miles away further. We don't have any groundbreaking information that's been introduced to the public. However, this is a break in the case that can assist to allow us to extract more information to make an identification as to a possible suspect. In addition to that, trying to find out the whereabouts of Nancy Guthrie.
Now, Darrin, a question I think the media has had is why have we not had a press conference? Because this seems like this could be a major development in this case. So why are officials not yet sharing more information with the public?
I think it's of optimum importance for law enforcement to introduce a fact pattern that would allow the public to assist in this case. And it goes back to not too long ago, there was a blast that was sent out to people that lived within a 2-mile radius to provide law enforcement with camera footage of something that would be suspected activity that would rely, or I should say, present a level of concern to law enforcement. That was a key piece in enlisting the public. But when we speak to a press conference, I think we would have a more established line of information that we can all listen to and hear, but that hasn't happened. But we have to also bear in mind, we had a significant development overnight as it relates to this warrant. So that may be a reason why law enforcement hasn't provided us with the information.
And we also do know, Darrin, that several tips have come in really since that surveillance video was put out earlier this week. Law enforcement now working through those tips. But we do have a viewer question that I wanted to ask you. And this is coming from Linda. And she's asking, do you believe the public tips is the result of these detainments?
Well, as it relates to Linda's question, it's very difficult to assess if it was a public tip, but we clearly need to have the the public working in tandem with law enforcement and providing that information to try to do the best that we can to uncover these crimes. And it goes back to the public is the greatest asset in law enforcement, and this has been historically sound.
I'm going to say this. I agree 1,000% with Darrin's assessment of the public assisting law enforcement in not only apprehensions, but closing cases. Some of the best work are done by the cyber sleuths and the people who are out in the public. That means community folks. That means people who own businesses. That means people who are out and about doing the service industry in the middle of the night, because they're aware of the heartbeat of the neighborhood. So kudos to Darrin coming in. He's a boy from the Bronx. Darrin was, grew up in the Bronx, New York. He worked in the Bronx as a cop. He became a sergeant and a lieutenant, and he finished his career, I believe, in the Internal Affairs Investigation Squad of the NYPD. And let me tell you, man, Darrin knows his stuff. And it was just an asset to have him in here. He's going to come back, and we're going to have him back on as it pertains to this case. But I did want to talk to him about the search warrants that was executed last night. And I did want to talk about the initial response and how crucial preserving a crime scene is to getting a successful prosecution. And that's where we're at right now is if we do get somebody into custody that's going to get arrested and that they're not going to just get into custody and let them go, the defense is going to have a field day based on the beginning. The beginning is what matters. And as Ed Wallace always says, crap in, crap out. And if you make a mistake, you can't fix it. Once you take the tape down and people are walking up, taking videotapes of the crime scene and packages are being delivered, pizza is going to be delivered to people outside of the perimeter, and there's no sheriffs there to secure that scene, then it's a wrap.
Best that we can to uncover these crimes. And it goes back to the public is the greatest asset in law enforcement, and this has been historically sound.
And Darrin, another question that we had coming in here was detained is not arrested, right? Are they in custody today? That is another viewer question.
Well, the term detainment is somewhat abstract. When we have a conviction in a criminal court case, that's when we have a person that's actually going to be in jail. They're going to serve some time. But the detainment can be a person arrested, or it can also be a person that's held for questioning. So it can bifurcate in two different aspects.
And also, folks, just to add to Darrin's little bit of discussion here, this is 10 hours ago. In the state of Arizona, you can be detained and not booked, not fingerprinted, not online booking and booked into a jail for 24 hours. Arizona law enforcement is able to hold somebody for questioning and not have official charges against them for a whole 24 hours. That's a long time. But this detainment last night, I was shocked that A, there was no press conference. I was shocked that A, no press conference, and B, no updates. No updates even via Twitter. I stayed up, and you guys know I'm fighting still World Trade Center related cancer. I lose gas. Like right now, up until 9:30, I'm okay. But after that 9:30 mark, I was up till 2 a.m. watching the footage because I thought there was going to be a press conference. I stayed up till 2 a.m. There was nothing. And you know what? When you don't communicate and you do such a large operation like that, they don't have to say what they did, but get in front of the cameras and at least give a statement. Hey, we're working to bring the perpetrator or perpetrators, plural, to justice in the Nancy Guthrie case. But they didn't even really do that. They just sent out a couple of Twitter blasts on X. It is ridiculous. And let us know what you think in the chat. If you think I'm reaching on this, I am just, look, I'm looking at it. If this happened in my community and I didn't know, is there still a murderer running around? Is there a homicidal maniac that's going to try to break into my home? Like, these are the things that I would think of if I was a senior. I know I can handle myself. But there's people who are living in that area that are elderly. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Dr. Darrin Porcher is back with us. Darrin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ron. Can you hear me?
All right, yes. Now, I sent you the text, a much better signal here. I can hear you perfectly. What I was asking you is about the crime scene. You're a retired NYPD lieutenant. You have your officers who come up to a scene, and there's blood right on the front doorstep. The family called 911 and said, there's blood on my mother's doorstep. Are you releasing that crime scene even after it was processed?
Well, you gotta also, the best way to describe this is that is this. The crime scene was clearly released too early. And, there's a lot of points of contention with that. Because look at where we are. I'm in Pena County, and they have a professional police department here. And it's ironic. This is not Tucson. Everyone speaks to Tucson, but the Tucson PD and the Pena County Sheriff's Office are two different departments.
Right.
Pena County is handling this, not the Tucson PD. But as it relates to the blood on the stairs, not the stairs, in the front of the house, I believe that they released the crime scene too early, and it kind of bit them in the wrong way. And secondly, the FBI came in. Many people make the argument of, why didn't you have the FBI sooner once it was perceived to be an abduction slash kidnapping? And I think that they were just trying to corroborate this as best as possible before they went to the FBI. They wanted to be sure or guaranteed that this, in fact, was a kidnapping as opposed to something that was localized. But these things happen in law enforcement. Do we make mistakes? Sure, we do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And there's all different possibilities of where none of us are in the head of Sheriff at the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Nanos, not a great speaker, and we're aware of that. They stopped the press conferences. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, it's better to be safe than sorry. And holding a crime scene with one sheriff's vehicle out in front of that driveway wouldn't have hurt anything. They're a 550 member department. Plus, they have volunteers like we have the.
There's a Pena County sheriff's vehicle that's positioned in front of the house. I should have showed you that, but I was just going through some internet challenge as it relates to that area. And
Got it.
I want to show you behind me. This is, I don't know if you could see, but like pitch black over there. My hotel is in close proximity. My hotel is behind me, but I totally agree with you as it relates to, they could have done things better. And we always have an after action review in policing to find out what we can do better. And this is one of those things that was a lot for a smaller department to handle.
Understood. Darrin, my next question is, have you ever seen search warrants executed with no arrests ×2? We saw this twice now. We saw the major operation that went on last night, and then the first one.
It's three. It's three. Because remember, we had the first one in Rio Rico. We had the second one in a house that's 2 miles away from where you had the two men and the mother. Third, actual Range Rover. It's about three search executed.
Right.
Of 5, and none of them have been arrested before. Never seen.
Right. I understand. A little spotty with the audio on your end. And I know that, you're outside your hotel. So I want you to get some rest. And if you can, please keep up to date with me. I mean, I don't want to hold you any further because the sound and you're having the issues with hearing me. But yeah, Darrin, I appreciate the perspective. You really provided a lot for the audience right outside of the home. And I can't thank you enough for doing that. Thank you, my friend.
Love you, Ron. Love your listeners. Doing what you're doing, getting the word out there. That's the real word, not something that's fabricated.
Appreciate that. Dr. Darrin Porcher on location outside of his hotel. Thank you so much for being here, Darrin. All right, there he goes. Dr. D gave some really good perspective. And listen, everybody has their thoughts on this. You don't have to align with what he was saying, but at the end of the day, I have my good friend, I am being bombarded with bosses tonight. I have another retired lieutenant, a fan favorite, retired Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale. Joe, how you doing? Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Joe, I know that I saw you shaking your head in the green room. I know that we all agree to disagree. This case is just the bizarro 101 for me, Joe. I've never seen an investigation go like this, and I tried to get Darrin to kind of take it from the beginning, and he did somewhat, but I wanted to get his thoughts as a boss about that front of that house and and I keep going back to this because this is a sticking point that's going to come up in court. Why didn't you secure a scene when the woman is still not, we don't know if she's dead or alive, early on? You let the sheriff's deputies drive away. Reporters had a free-for-all. People who are gawking had a free-for-all. Pizza delivery guys, Amazon drivers, you name it. And we have pool guys on day 12 cleaning the freaking pool.
Yep. And this is what we said time and time again, Ron. And you and I have been to so many crime scenes. Ed's processed more than anybody could be to, in his career. Like you got to multiply that by hundreds. But here's the thing. When this police department went there and they said there's a missing woman, they see blood, they were more concerned with the inside of that house than they were with the outside of it. They thought they could contain it to that area. They weren't thinking ahead saying, we're going to have to search the area. We're going to have to make this entire premise a crime scene. And why we say that is because they kept going back to go to the septic tank, to go back and take other, pictures, and to go back there and they go in, they come out, they go in there. You and I have said it with Ed. Me, I call you guys call me up. I'm saying, lock that place down. We send 2 cars there.
Right.
If we have to. And you send 4 bodies if you have to. Put 2 people in the back of the house.
Right.
Because I'm live with Fox and I'm watching their drone and there's a guy walking around to the left of the house. Then you have pizza deliveries. I mean, it's comical to some people, but it's not comical to me. All right. Because we take these crime scenes serious.
Yeah.
Right? And Ron, I got to tell you, it's getting to the point where you and I discussed it, and I discussed it live last night. I don't know whether you saw, we hit it as soon as it jumped off.
Right away.
And it was like a fluid situation. And I can answer something that you asked Darrin before. Have you ever seen no arrest with that? There's a reason for this right now. They're working off a tip line. They're working off of people who are providing evidence, so-called evidence. And just like I was on with Mark Garagos last night and John Bueller from the Lacey Peterson case, John did a great job of addressing all the other what ifs because it came up at trial, and Mark made sure he put it up at trial. And let me tell you something. The fact that he addressed all those things was key during the criminal, case, during the, Scott Peterson's case. It was key because they couldn't blame. They said, no, we addressed that. It's not true. Every time they brought something, no, I addressed that too. Right. That's what's happening here. But here's the thing that people are missing. When you get the statements from these individuals, you're documenting those statements. We always go back and see if they recant. You know that. And if they recant to a degree that's unacceptable, you know you're onto something. So it's not like they're going anyplace. I think the one crime scene, that car was tied into it last night, but they went in there and they did what they had to do because something brought them there, and they had enough to satisfy, the requirements for a federal magistrate to issue that warrant. All right. So, things are moving. I think this is just everything fast forwarding since the kidnapping was put on the other side. And they said, we're going ahead with a more serious crime over here right now. And you had on some great guests the other night with, the equines in it. I thought that was fabulous that, what they can offer for this search.
And Joe, EquiSearch Midwest, I've been friends with them since Gabby Petito's disappearance. We did a fundraiser and raised over $20,000 for them in 4 hours on YouTube. And I only had about 100,000 subscribers at the time. So we're going to do it again. Hey, I want to address this comment here. And this is not, I'm not, attacking this person here. It's, they say, whatever happened to Back in the Blue? I'm going to let you go. But I first want to highlight this. I am all for Back in the Blue when they do the right thing. But I'm not going to be some schlep that's going to back the Blue with just on anything that goes on. When we see something, we call the balls and strikes. If we see something that's good, we toot the horn. If we see something that's bad, we would be just as bad as them as if we said, you know what, they did the right thing here. Leave them alone. Cut them some slack. No. That's not what you would want if this was your family member. So these kind of statements, I mean, I'm not mad or anything, but I just want to reiterate for everybody that's looking at this statement and this comment, if we would have backed the Blue on everything that they did, that would not be good. Because when there's a mistake and where there's something that is in our expertise and we know what's right and wrong. And look at the Karen Reed case. I lost friends over that case that are cops, that are retired cops, because they didn't think what Ed and myself were saying was fair. But we called the balls and strikes. And when someone drops the ball, you have to call them out. And if you don't, shame on you. Joe, your thoughts as an executive. You're a retired executive from the largest police department in the United States.
To your listeners, your viewers, I have to tell you something. This is nothing. What Ron is saying and what I say and what other people say, you could say it's Monday morning quarterbacking. It's not. It's just mistakes that were made. If you think we're tough, wait until the defense attorneys get a hold of this. All right? Whoever has to represent these dirtbags. All right? And that's the key. And that's the point. When you screw up to a degree and you have to sit back and say, whoa, you know what? I screwed up and I could do this and I could do that. If somebody beats a case because of that, that's on you. All right. And that's something you have to live with. Right. In the Karen Reed case, what you were just speaking about, I was on with you for that, Ron. And I turned around and I said, kudos to you, because it was a screw up. And you know what the bottom line for me was? And I'll say it anytime, anywhere. We still have a dead cop that's still unaccounted for in that case. So if you want to talk about back the blue on the brother that was lost, and there's still no justice for him or his family. So that, that we could go back to that, and we could go back and forth all night long on that one. But over here, it's I understand. Darrin was saying this. There's Tucson and there's Pima. It's not the point. The point is, if they didn't know, I think the detectives could have, stepped in and said, you know what, I think we need to keep a car there. But maybe they thought they were finished with the crime scene. But the problem is, once you give that crime scene up like that, you're done.
Joe, as a boss, Joe, I'm not. I hate to interrupt you because I love your take and everything that you give here. But as a boss, I'm asking you: does the cop make the decision and say, you know what, Sheriff Deputy 269 at the Guthrie home, I'm leaving. I'm going 98. That's our little code for going back to patrol in New York City. Is it his call or is it the boss's call? And does that boss report back to the big boss, the sheriff? We just cut the crime scene loose. We cut the units loose.
I don't know what the chain of command was that night. What it was over there, but I'll tell you right now. In absence, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, in absence of me not being there and you having me on the phone saying, boss, what do you want to do? I'm telling Ed, lock that scene down until I get there. Make sure nobody goes in there. Listen, it's something that we know. They may not know that to that degree. I understand that. But the thing is, even when besides us, there's been every outlet speaking about this incident, all right, about the lack of locking down the crime scene.
It's on the national stage.
It's on the national stage. So at what point do you turn around and say, I'm going to put a car there? And then when you do put a car there, there's a pizza delivery there. I mean, come on. People are looking at this, and the defense attorney's salivating at this to say, oh, I wish I had this case. And they're going to be calling the way we speak. Defense attorneys speak too. Say, hey, look into this, look into that. But the thing is, we need to go back into a crime scene. There's no problem with that as long as you preserve the integrity of that crime scene. All right. It goes back to oh my God, we could go back to OJ with this.
We need to
we
hold
could.
our cops to a higher standard, and all ranks and file across the United States and across the world, for that matter, they need to be held to a higher standard. And when Ed sees these crime scene mess ups where you have blood droplets coming up to the house, and Ed even looked for swabbing because he's got a keen eye for this, Lieutenant. He's got a keen eye to see where blood's been swabbed. And we looked it over. And of course, we didn't have all of the footage. They definitely swabbed it because it came back positive for Nancy. But that blood trail led all the way to that driveway where Dr. Darrin Porcher was standing with the gravel and everything. So that blood stain, those blood trails went all the way out, indicating that she was taken out of that house, whether on her own or being carried out. We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns here, but my biggest problem is when you start from the get-go on a case, no matter how big or how small it is. Now, this could be you, me, or any of our families. And if this happened to me, I would be standing on the rooftop, shouting it out from the rooftops. What is going on here? I would be at that sheriff's office if I was the Guthrie family and demanding, what are you doing? Why are you denying the FBI taking evidence back to Quantico and using your lab down in Florida? That to me is like, and I'm not an expert at the evidence collection and processing, but Ed Wallace is. And the first thing I asked him when that happened, I asked Ed, I turned to him for a lot of information. And I said, Ed, what's going on here? And he said, a whole lot of wrong. So if I hear that from Ed Wallace, I take it as Bible. So
yeah, you're right. And Ron, I got to tell you something. We look at this so differently than most people do. I do. I most certainly do. Because I'm looking at it like, let's get back to the original crime. We still have so many questions that are unanswered over here. But we went so fast from one crime to the next crime, which is kidnapping. And they're dealing with the what was appeared to be a kidnapping. And they're supposedly making the dialogue. We saw that. We saw the FBI step in. They were great with that. With the, how they had to read the message, what should be put in the message. And then we go, all of a sudden, it stops and it goes back to the original investigation. And it becomes very somber, for lack of a better word. It becomes very somber. And we're all guessing the same thing. Listen, we said it before. This is an 84-year-old woman with health problems, this and that. This doesn't look good. But I'll tell you something else. If all these tips that are coming in, that are pointing to this and pointing to that, they're not pointing to where, they're pointing to individuals that could be involved with this. If the sheriff's department, the FBI, or anybody that's involved with this investigation right now, whether on the state level or whatever, if they actually thought that they were going to a location where they thought Nancy Guthrie was being held, don't you think there would be EMTs on site with them? I haven't seen one ambulance on site when they roll on these things. Not one. All right. So that tells me a lot too. All right. They're doing what they have to do right now is the bottom line. The one thing I do disagree with, while I respect the sheriff's decision and that department's decision to send it to their lab, there's nothing that, and even Ed said they could send it to them, but you missed that one transfer right then and there from Quantico where they already have CODIS. Now you have to bring that there to get in. So if time is of the element right now, of the essence right now, and that's one of the key elements here is time. You don't want to waste time going to two different labs, and contractually or not, you can bring it to the FBI because you're not hiring somebody else. They're paying for it. They're taking so you're not in violation of anything there.
And I want to state one more thing further. If they're dealing with touch DNA, we saw this in the Kohlberger case. We saw it in many other cases. If you send it out to a lab and they use all of the touch DNA, it's done. You can't use it again. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that lab in Florida is top notch. They're probably top notch. Most of these are. Ortham Labs over in Texas, unbelievable. They were instrumental in getting Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, in custody. 7 murders attached to his case. Ortham Labs worked on the pizza crust. They came up with the profile. A state trooper, a female state trooper that was working on the task force, also had instrumental investigatory skills as it pertains to getting Rex Heuermann with the vehicles. So there's just such a great collaboration, and we work so well with the FBI. Okay, 26 Federal Plazas right in Manhattan. We have the Joint Terrorist Task Force, the JTTF. This sheriff, and it's not just me. Brian Enton interviewed an undersheriff. Did you see that interview that he did?
Yes, I did.
That was eye-opening, and I have it saved. We're going to play that later in the show. The undersheriff, which is like the executives, one of the many executives that worked under the Pima County Sheriff current, talked about a 2016 incident where the FBI was investigating not Pima County Sheriff Nanos, but some of his coworkers, some of his colleagues. And he was promised by the FBI that he would be kept apprised of how the investigation goes. And you know how the FBI works. You know, once their bosses tell them, hey, mum's the word on this, nobody's going to get notification until we get to the end, till we get to the promised land. That's what happened with him. And per this retired 40-year executive of the Pima County, he was an undersheriff, he stated that this guy has deep disdain for the FBI. That was 2016. Fast forward to today, does he still hold that grudge? I don't know. But I would say this. I would say this to you guys watching. If you have a small to medium-sized police department, which the Pima County Sheriffs, what did you say, Joe? 550, 600 sworn, and a bunch of volunteers. We saw a volunteer, I believe, last night doing the cones and the traffic control at the warrant scene 2 miles out. If you are offered the full resources of the FBI and you have the president of the United States talking about this case, wouldn't you be like, oh, what a relief. I got a bunch of competent men and women of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, unbelievable amount of resources, unbelievable amount of capabilities. They do those geofencing warrants that I talked about on day 2 or 3. I talked about that on a live stream. Dr. Darrin tonight talked about a geofencing warrant. That is what's up their alley. This is what they love to do. This is what they live for. So if you have, I don't care what your problems were in the past, you have a current situation where, we work for the people, we work for the victims, we work for their families to bring justice. And with this case, it's just mind-blowing to me to see and hear. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing these interviews where he talks about nobody's been cleared. But in a previous statement on X, it said the Guthrie family was cleared. So, like, where are we here? What is going on?
I don't know how he makes that statement that the unless he knows for sure that the Guthrie family is cleared on this. But you and I have gone over this, and Ed as much. That's the nucleus of this investigation, is the beginning of it, when we do the victimology and we find out, where's the weak link with this? Who's got the most to gain from this? All right. And that's what we did. Ron, you bring up a great point. When, I'm dating myself, but way back when, I don't want to say how far back, we did the Latin King case with King Tone and King Blood. Very big case, worked very well with the feds. Everything went streamlined. Bosses worked things out. We went out in the field. We actually went out in the field with them, made apprehensions and everything. We didn't care about egos or anything like that. And then after that comes 9/11. All right. And after 9/11, things really got pushed. The pedal got pushed in the metal. Mm-hmm. The FBI's big department in this country has been there saying, we have the resources. Let us help you. All right. And that's what they do, because they have the greatest assets across this country as far as helping and being an asset to departments. Why wouldn't you welcome them to do something? So anybody who says that it's an ego problem, you bring ego into a case like this, you better sit down, go take a vacation day, do something, because egos have no room in an investigation like this. Everybody has to be on the same page and do what you have to do. And I know for a fact that the FBI is breaking their ass on this case.
Right. I agree 100% with you, boss. And the Pima County Sheriff's Department is really controlling what gets out to the press. But some of the news outlets, they run with stories. But at the end of it, they have their checks, their ways and means. They have to abide by verifying stories. So I really watch Brian Enton really closely because he gets, as much information that he can verified. He was the only reporter inside the crime scene behind where the checkpoint was at the not the crime scene, at the warrant location last night. So Brian was in his car just like slouched down reporting, and I was getting a lot of information from him.
I was laughing.
Yeah,
he was just on the outskirts of the outer perimeter of the inner perimeter. He was just right on the outskirts of that. But you know what? Brian's smart. Brian knows what he has to do. He even said, "I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to compromise." That's why he stayed in the car. And if anybody would have came to him like they did and said, "You have to move," he says, "Absolutely no problem." Yeah.
Hey, listen, folks, anybody want to see the interview? It's loud. It's noisy. There's cars riding by with the undersheriff, with Brian Enton. It's only about 4 minutes long. But he asks them, if you want to see this interview, or if you want me to play it, press 1 in the chat. If you don't want to see it, we have Ed Wallace. He's ready to join us. I want to go over the car and what potentially the FBI was taken out of the back where the yellow tarps are. Put a 1 in the chat if you want to hear just this quickly. This is Brian Enton interviewing the undersheriff who worked for the Pima County current sheriff, Sheriff Nanos, Chris. We'll play it, and then Ed, we'll go to Ed for the crime scene analysis of what the FBI forensic folks were doing with that Range Rover. All right, let's do it. Bring in Ed. I'm bringing Ed in. Hey, Ed, how are you, brother?
Okay, a little tired, sorry, but I got my coffee, so I'm here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Let me just play this interview, and then we're going to go straight to you after this for the forensic breakdown, what they were looking at on the side quarter panels, what they were looking at the undercarriage or the lower part of that vehicle, because there is a lot to it that I didn't want to get into talking about because it's not my expertise. Here's Brian Enton interviewing this guy, and again, it's loud, a lot of background noise, so easy with the ears.
Taking it from one source and putting it in another, it is a violation of that law.
But he was not happy with the FBI during that time.
No, he wasn't happy.
And you were on the
I have a 1-word answer.
Give up the and heard there have been former critical evidence. First of all, what is your reaction to this new reporting that the sheriff withheld critical evidence from the FBI?
I have a 1-word answer. That's outrageous. And it's outrageous for a number of reasons. The FBI is the entity that certifies those for-profit organizations, of which the Sheriff's Department here has a contract with, to analyze trace evidence, DNA, hair, anything. And to, in my opinion, to not include the FBI.
Folks in the chat, if you wait to the end, we're going to do 15 minutes of questions at the end of the chat. So while we're doing this, I have like I have to follow what I want to get out for you guys. At the end of this chat, which is the last 15 minutes at the end of this live stream, we're going to take your questions. So just bear with me.
In that analysis is absolutely outrageous. But it's rooted in this sheriff's disdain for the FBI. And it's rooted in, back when I was a member of the organization and working, a investigation that erupted. Chris was not, the sheriff was not the focus of the investigation, but he was promised by the FBI that they would keep the FBI, him apprised of the progress of the investigation of some of his subordinates. They didn't. And simply put, that angered him considerably. I think I can understand that, but that particular grudge was with individual personalities that worked for the FBI at the time, not the partners we have today. And, whatever evidence was gained over the course of several 2 weeks needed to be processed, all of it, in my opinion, by the FBI, and with their talent and with their expertise and with their capabilities. The Sheriff's Department doesn't have it. Classic example, and maybe I spoke to this earlier, that video that we saw in Nancy's immediate front entrance. I know that the Sheriff's Department kind of dismissed any opportunity to resurrect that video. But once the FBI got involved, unbeknownst to local law enforcement, it was resurrectable. And it was, now we all have although he's masked up, we have a clear image of somebody at.
So basically, he's saying that the capabilities of the FBI prevail here. They got them that footage. They helped work with the private industry. The sheriff's department, in his opinion, would not be able to do that. Ed, your thoughts on the Range Rover that we saw last night and the warrant that was executed at that Airbnb home? But let's go with the vehicle first. What were your thoughts on what you saw today?
Well, they put up the yellow tarp to block the media from witnessing what they were doing in the back of the car. So I have no clue what was back there and what they were doing in the back of the car and what they removed from the back of the car. I didn't see any forensic tools like an alternate light source or an infrared or any laser scanners or anything like that. I didn't see any flash photography going on because, had there been flash photography of the rear of the car, you would have seen the flash, even though the yellow blanket or the yellow tarp was there trying to block the view. I didn't see any of that. But I did see on the side of the car where they were working on what I believe to be the right side of the vehicle, they were looked like they were using some kind of liquid onto the surface of I don't know, maybe a towel or gauze pad or something to that effect. And they were swabbing areas around the right side rear wheel well, and then along the right bottom edge of the vehicle. And I believe they were doing all of this before they had placed the car on the flatbed truck. So I don't know exactly what they were looking for. I mean, were they trying to take soil samples? Were they trying to take debris that may have been up in the rear, the wheel well or underneath the undercarriage of the car before the vehicle got up on the flatbed truck to be brought back to hopefully a forensic garage?
Now, Ed, in the back here, when they held up the tarp, not only on this side, but the opposite side, because there was lots of onlookers. This was in a parking lot of a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
What do you presume that, there's people saying, oh, maybe they put her body in the back of that vehicle. Darrin, early on when he was outside of Nancy Guthrie's home, he speculated that perhaps that this might have been the vehicle. And I say might have been the vehicle that she was placed into and driven off away from her residence. What in God's name could they do here in 5 minutes? Not even. It was not even 5 minutes.
I mean, they can do. I see a flashlight operating, so they could do just a quick search inside the back of the car. Okay, but this is not the time or the place to be doing a full forensic examination of the vehicle. Okay, the vehicle was in fact flatbedded back to a secure location, and that's the location where the vehicle, on the controlled lighting and HVAC systems and so forth, should be examined in a clean environment. But a quick look in there, see, first of all, you want to check to see if the victim is inside of the vehicle. And second of all, there might have been things in there, clothing. Maybe they're looking for the clothing and the backpack and so forth that were seen in the video that they know the suspect was in possession of that night of the abduction. So they might be quickly looking in there to see if they can find those types of items, as I said, the clothing, the backpack, and things of that nature.
Hairs and fibers or staining?
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that there.
Yeah.
Right. You mean for hairs and fibers, you would really want to use an alternate light source, and you would put it into the UV range with an orange barrier filter, and then the foreign fibers would fluoresce orange in the presence of the UV light shining on it. But that's not the place to do that in the parking lot of a hamburger joint. Okay. Mm-hmm. Again, they might be looking for signs of blood. Something they could see, easily in the back of the car, and to get more information in detail. But again, the parking lot of this burger joint is not the place to be conducting a forensic analysis of this vehicle.
Right. We could see the flashlights fluorescing downward towards the, the bed of the vehicle, or maybe the lip of the trunk as it goes in, to see if something was dragged in there, perhaps, or maybe some type of material from the Guthrie residence that would not have any reason to be in the back of that vehicle. Now, we talked to Tommy, the auto crime NYPD retired first grader, Tommy Burke. And I talked to him on the phone tonight, and he said that this car has an unbelievable computer system, the black box, he refers to it as. And in the 2024-2025 late model edition of this Range Rover, even if they disable the tracking, or if they delete their location history of this vehicle, he said that hands down that they will be able to, through a court order, to get the vehicle data to see if this vehicle transversed into or around Nancy Guthrie's home on the date. And he said it could go back to 90 days, which is unbelievable. So, Joe, I see you shaking your head. It's a really, it's a huge thing here for this investigation. If in fact this will take time, right, Ed? You got to get.
Absolutely. The car is going to take time. Now, remember what I said the other day on the show about what our friends over in Europe are doing with the dogs and scent? Okay. Yes. If they would have gotten one of Nancy's articles of clothing or her pillow, something that she would have left her scent on, and then got a tracking dog to sniff this item, you could see if the dog could potentially hit on this vehicle, okay? To see if the dog can pick up on the scent of Nancy in this vehicle, or in the Airbnb that was searched as well. And also, you can even go back further to, what was his name? Carlos?
Yes.
Carlos's vehicles and Carlos's mother-in-law's house. Is the same thing. When you got nothing, it wouldn't be a bad idea to try something like that.
I agree wholeheartedly. It can't hurt. But the real thing that's got me is that they are not holding anybody. They are detaining people and then releasing them. Of course, these folks were not free to leave. So, they're brought there, and if they asked the investigators, hey, can I walk out of here? And Carlos was held for 8 hours. That's a long time. But they have 24 hours in the state of Arizona to hold somebody without charging them, without booking them, without getting a mugshot picture, and fully putting charges forward. It just got me scratching my head. And a lot of people I see in the chat are like, what in God's name is going on? How many of these detentions are we going to have? Are they going to drag in 50 people and then release them? There's a lot of people in the chat be like, well, am I next? Well, I don't think they're just picking these people out of thin air, right?
Yeah. Did a tip lead them to these locations? Did digital forensics, or did Geo-Fencing, or cell phone information, data, or whatever the case may be, lead them to this vehicle, these persons?
Right. And Deb Longo says, releasing them due to lack of probable cause. You need more than just probable cause to arrest somebody. You need that probable cause to get the search warrants and to get the warrants and so forth. But look, I agree with the frustration factor here, but maybe they're trying to build their case against these people, that they had some involvement in some way, shape, or form, or maybe they are just trying to say, hey, these people are part of the cleared people. But as per the sheriff, nobody's cleared. So that even means Carlos. That even means the Guthrie family. That means the son-in-law. There's just so much conflicting information. At one point a day or two ago, I heard that the family was completely cleared. Remember that, Ed?
Yeah. Well, yes, they did say that, but then the sheriff kind of contradicted himself. He said, nobody's cleared. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Joe, look, the NYPD, I can't, I keep going back and forth to it because, Savannah she works in New York City. So she probably has an apartment or some type of residence here in New York. She's a New Yorker. So this is also a New York case because it involves somebody who is, a morning show celebrity, so to speak, for NBC. And she's been working here for a long, long time. So I get the public's frustration, and there's lots of conflicting and false information out there. But the amount of tips and evidence that they have to go through and clear is mind-boggling. It's a lot. It is a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, just look at some of the cop homicides that I worked on. The tips that came through were incredible, and you have to decipher what's credible, what's not credible. And when they start having some credence to them, and you have to give it some weight, you have to have everybody go over that. Over here, we didn't have what we have now with the help of everybody, all your viewers and everybody calling in saying, well, I saw this, I saw that. And don't forget, guys, they just upped the reward to 100,000. Right. And I was asked today, what is the significance of that? I said, you know what? It's just showing how serious they are about the case. All right. 50,000 to 100,000, you're still going to get the person that has the most information that's going to come forward. So rest assured, if it was a tip, as Ed said, that they're going to run that down, and it still had to have enough to satisfy that federal magistrate. And I'm sure when they unseal it, you'll see the rhyme or reason to it for many of the reasons you may have just stated right here. But, Ed, I wanted to ask you a question. When they tow these cars away, wouldn't it be a good thing to put like a tarp underneath it so when it's in transport, that anything that falls off could be, collected on the tarp? Because, as you said, if they're going over there and they're looking for soil samples that are generic to, I mean, who knows if she had a certain gravel thrown down over there or something to put into it and it turns up in there. I think, you're spot on with that. But wouldn't it be a good idea to put that underneath so they can say they at least did that and came from that and make it a lot easy so they don't have to go in front of a burger place?
In many cases, when we're have vehicle in such a high profile case like this, we do that. In fact, we wrap the whole car sometimes, and the FBI is known to do this. I've seen them do it time and time again. Before they put the car on the flatbed, you can put some tarps down, clean, brand new tarps, and you put the tarps down on the metal flatbed, and then you tow the car up there and then secure it, and then you wrap the car on the flatbed and tow it away. We did, if you remember the Times Square bombing incident, that the bomb did not detonate. The suspect was from Connecticut, and he bought the car on Craigslist, and he made this improvised a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, and it didn't work. It failed to detonate. But when the car was, being towed away after it was, rendered safe by our bomb squad, we wrapped the whole thing and protected it, and just for that purpose, in case things fell down from the undercarriage, you would have that underneath there to capture that. But it is a moving vehicle. It's going to be stationary on the flatbed, and it's going to be bouncing up and down as the flatbed is traversing to its destination. You're gonna get things that can break loose and then get on there, and that's the nature of the beast. And you want to try to do everything you can to secure that kind of material so that you can collect it.
Yeah, great conversation right there. I want to go to the chat, and if girls, if you're not yet subscribed, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And also for Ed, myself, and our good friend Joe and Darrin, who was on earlier, if you could hit that thumbs up, it always helps out. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Joe, hashtag Ron, or if you just want a question general for everybody, just put it in the chat. We'll try to get to as many chat questions as possible. Now, this is the 15-minute Q&A where we're going to answer your questions as it pertains to this case. Question, is it common not to pay ransom or pay the guy offering the information? If so, why not? I'll let maybe Joe take that. Joe?
It's common. You don't pay. This isn't a ransom at this point right now. This is for the tips. This is for credible tips. You have to understand, sometimes they throw wording in there, and I think you would agree with me, Ron, on this, and Ed, that leading, they always put terms in there like leading to the arrest and conviction. They don't really do that anymore. Right now, they're saying for the arrest. So if you get to that point where it's enough to arrest this person and you got the person of interest in custody, they'll weigh it out and they'll say they met all the criteria for the what do you call it, the reward money. But you want to know something? Anybody who's going to be calling in credible information right now is going to be serious about it. They're going to say, listen, I understand that they're going to be assigned a number. They're going to be kept on the QT right now, and they're going to keep giving the information. And that's where some of this might be coming from. We don't know, but you do have to run those down. And you might have 5 or 6 people, and they'll turn around and say at the end, it was all these pieces together that made this, and split it up and tell them this is what it is. And I think most people would be just happy to get the case solved, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. Here, this is a common question that we get night after night, and thank you, Jerry. I hold on to hope, but I do not think that she's alive, and I didn't think she was alive from that first day. And the following reasons why I feel that. She has multiple medical conditions. She was described by the sheriff and through her family as a ball of fire, as a tough woman, but pacemaker, blood thinners, they said chronic pain, and now the blood at the scene. For those 3 reasons or 4 reasons that I just mentioned, I believe that she was not alive from day one. But I hold on to hope, and I pray that she is. And I think my co-host and my friend Joe both feel the same way. Thank you for that question. I'm going to go to some of the super chats from the beginning. Wasn't me, sent in 50. Thank you so much. Joey Egg Drop sent in another 10 on a super sticker. Mark Gamblin, thank you for the super sticker. Mastiff Lover, always in the chat and always supporting. This is how I feel. It wasn't meant to be this big. This is how I feel. It wasn't meant to be this big. I mean, look, her daughter is, again, a superstar on the East Coast, one of the nationally syndicated morning shows on NBC. The media holds the narrative in these cases, and if it wasn't her daughter, this wouldn't be getting this amount of coverage. And I that's how I believe. I mean, maybe my friends here don't agree with me, but if this was you or me or Joe Blow or whatever, we would get maybe some coverage, but it wouldn't be a lot. That's for sure. So I really feel it's the media covers and controls the narrative of how this gets out and how it's talked about. Tina, thank you for gifting. Ali, thank you for the 5. It has gone very quiet since the raid last night. Things happen behind the scenes, perhaps, always. And someone said in the chat, gentlemen, and in the live chat, somebody said in the chat, do law enforcement, including the FBI, they're always tight-lipped. The FBI doesn't say anything. They are not talkative agency. So, but when things are quiet, sometimes that's when a lot of things are happening. And also, somebody said in the chat, do law enforcement intentionally not tell things to keep the investigation tight? Yes, there's only certain things that they want to get out, and those things that they do get out is for their advantage, for their case, right? So releasing the video of the picture of this guy's face 100% tells us that they didn't at the time have any concrete leads. But since then, there's been over 4,000 or more. It's an astronomical number of tips that have been coming in. And when people get somebody's face partially blasted across the world, you know how many tips come in? 20,000 plus. They have to run them all down. And that also does bog down the investigation a little bit. Thank you, Kay the Geek, for becoming a member. Thank you, Kimberly, for becoming a new member. Katina, always supporting. Love you. Happy Valentine's Day to all the ladies out there watching. This case has been fucked from the start, in my opinion, says Susie Dupree. I agree. But we are not privy to what the case file holds and where they're at in this investigation. Bless you, Ed.
Bless you.
But we have a lot of experience as it pertains to investigations. Joe ran tons of investigations as a boss, and he knows how it goes. Thank you for the 5. 2 raids have been produced. No evidence or suspects. Darrin actually broke it down. 3, plus you had possibly violating people's rights. We don't know that. We don't have any idea. We can't say this is not true or it is true. I'm sure that if the FBI is involved, they're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Joe, I think you could speak more to this.
I don't think they're not kicking down doors. I mean, they go there heavily on because you have to expect the worst when you are dealing with a case like this.
Right.
All right. So you go there prepared. You don't go there unprepared. So, you have to just, deal with it. And if they're not like vetting them, you're vetting them. You're letting to, see what's going on with this. They are vetting them. That's what leads up to the point of getting the warrants. I mean, you have to satisfy certain requirements for the warrant. So you jump in with that, and that's it. That's the bottom line.
They know from the video that the perp has a gun. If they get these names, they should be running. Now, Arizona is a open carry state. You don't need a license to carry a gun in Arizona. So there are, however, concealed carry permits still issued by Arizona. So you can check those databases against the names that you've been given from your tip line to see if they have any weapons before you head to a location to do a raid, for good planning there. But, I wouldn't expect anything less. We have to protect ourselves first when we're going there. But they're not, they've gotten warrants. So they had to meet the probable cause for the judge to sign off on that warrants. Now, there was a question, Ron, are you done? Because there was a question I would like to answer.
I have like 4 more, Ed.
Okay.
And please hold that thought because we're getting ready to wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Southern Belle, thank you for the $20, a cup of coffee for you all, for helping us understand what's going on. And that's where our end goal is here, is to try to give you a bird's eye view of our lens of how we see it. We respect how everybody else sees it, but we're giving you the police detective's perspective. And we have bosses here, Joe and Darrin. And coincidentally, Darrin, retired lieutenant, worked in the internal affairs division of the NYPD. So for those of you who are talking about, violation of rights and so forth, he knows about, bad cops. And that's what he did for the New York City Police Department at one point in his career. So thank you for that, Southern Belle, for the cup of coffee. Chai Crimes, thank you for following us from the beginning. And thank you for thanking us for our response to the World Trade Center. Ed, myself, Joe, you were there too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Joe, we're all 3 of us World Trade Center first responders. Emily, thank you for the 20. Is there any actual evidence that Nancy made it home after dinner, aside from her son-in-law saying that verbally that he brought her there? I'm sure that the detectives wanted to corroborate his story, and I'm sure that they went to great lengths to get proof that she was dropped off there. Ed?
Yeah, I would think that, once she separated from the base station that was monitoring her pacemaker, when she went in the Uber to go to dinner, there's going to be that separation. It's going to show that it's disconnected. And when she comes back, and once she gets in range of that device, it should have evidence of her reestablishing the communications between her pacemaker and the base station. So they should be able to pick up on that.
Yeah, that she was brought back home, for sure. Also, whatever vehicle he drove her in, they pulled, I guarantee you, they got a warrant and pulled the black box for that vehicle to see if he transversed and drove from his house to there to prove it, because they're not going to just take his word for it. The investigators don't take anybody's word for it. So that is all being run down that we don't even hear about. Try Crimes, thank you for becoming a member. Ali, thank you for becoming a new member. Jen, thank you for the 5. Super Blue, thank you for becoming a new member. So many great new members. We're going to do a members only tomorrow. So if you're not a member, consider becoming a member. I think for the year, it costs $34 for the whole year. Debbie, another great question for the 5. Nancy was involved with her community and political organizations. Do you think this was a kidnapping/murder was done by someone who knew her or a stranger? I'm going to start. I feel like deep in my heart that this is someone who knew her. This is someone that possibly worked for her, did work at that home, or knew of the family through people who worked at the home. It doesn't necessarily have to be the people who work there. It could be their friends in their circles when they get together and talk. Oh, I was at this very wealthy person's home and we were doing her roof. I'm just using an example. Don't crucify me. I clean her pool. I fixed her garage door. The house is huge. She's there alone. It could be just as innocent as that. And I won't say it's innocent, but that could be something that could start the wheels in motion. That's how I feel. I'll go to you, Joe, and then Ed.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say that this is somebody who have what we call intimate knowledge of that location and of the family. So that's why it goes back to it, that nobody's off the radar right now, including the family. You go back to who's got something to lose with this, who's got something to gain with this. They go back, and it's just basic, basic policing right now. And that's the bottom line. Somebody with knowledge of this location and of Nancy Guthrie.
Mr. Wallace.
Well, there's a couple of crazy things. I'd like to see the crime statistics for this neighborhood, because based upon some of these video cameras on these houses, there seems to be a lot of burglary activity at night in this community.
Guys running out with backpacks.
Yeah. So there's always that aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, we can't rule out anything or rule in anything at this point in time. So everybody's a suspect until proven not.
Yeah.
That said, interesting dynamics that this is has a lot of activity at night. Where think about this now, a lot of these locations are not abandoned, or there are people in these houses at 2 o'clock in the morning when these burglars are going to break in with people in the house.
Right. Yeah. Jen No is in the chat, and she left a message. She's a channel member and is a platinum channel member. So I want to get to her question. Here it is. Member for over 58 months. Wow. Praying for Savannah and Nancy. Thank you for your continued coverage on her case. DutyRon and Ed and Joe. Thank you. Thank you. All right. A couple more questions. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Ron. Please put it in the chat. I'm going to try to take a couple more, and then we're wrapping it up. We're up here for almost an hour and 30. I think.
All right. So I do see a question, if I may.
Yes, please.
Okay. The question was about, do you think they're taking DNA from these people when they're doing these people they're detaining? I said 100%. 100%. I believe they're taking DNA. They could probably got that in the warrant. The warrant probably is also specifying take their electronics, their cell phones, or giving them authority to dump the infotainment systems on the vehicles, to gather up all that data that they can. They're probably even dumping or cloning hard drives on laptops and computers to see if they can make some kind of association with emails and so forth.
Right. And let me add another thing, because Lori Shortlegs, a channel member and a good friend of this community for a long time, she says, yes, $1 million homes, which we know, Nancy's home, multi-million dollar. They bought it in 72. It's worth quite a bit. It's a beautiful home. Dark as hell. Criminals running freely all over the place. The border is 1 hour from Tucson, right? So at the end of the day here, the border is 1 hour from her home. And in over the past several years, the border was wide open. And don't want to get political here, don't want to get crazy about this. It's a fact, folks. The country had for many years an open border, and people were pouring in from the southern border. So this is the backdrop of, and this is the aftermath of, when you have an open border and not a secure border, you do have a lot of people who could come running in that are unscrupulous jagaloons that have very bad intentions. And who gets harmed? Americans.
I've done some training down in New Mexico, in El Paso, and in Yuma, Arizona. And I've driven around here, and sometimes you don't know when you're crossing a border, because it's not at a normal one of the checkpoints, and you just realize, like I've known for myself, I had friends that inadvertently drove across the border from Arizona into New Mexico at a non-border crossing location, not knowing that they left the U.S. and are now in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Okay. Only to have their cell phones pop up and say, "Hey, welcome to Mexico." Yeah, because their service just switched, from the American service provider to the Mexican service provider, and then they did a mad U-turn and raced back across the border.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. you know, these are just examples, and I'm not saying that this is exact reason why this happened, but what I'm saying is that, you know, it's location has everything to do with how detectives view cases like this. And when you have you know, a situation where you're that close, this is part of the crime stats. It's sad but true. All right, so
see that question, Ron? You see that somebody would like to see the statistics to back up the claim. Let's understand something. We don't have the pedigree on 12 million people that came across that border. All right, and I guarantee you this. Go look it up. I guarantee you the quality of life crimes in Eagle Pass and areas like this and everything else have gone through the roof. Mill Base in Brooklyn went through the roof when they were housing them down there. So you really have to think about when you say something like that, the statistics are there. All right. But quality of life crimes, when they get comfortable doing that, they escalate to other crimes. That's a fact.
Right. Joe, did you say Mill Basin?
Yes.
Oh, when Margaret and I first got married, Margaret had a home there, and I lived there for a short period of time. 2 years I lived in Mill Basin. I couldn't wait to get back to Staten Island, though.
Listen, so folks, to reel it in here, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank everybody for subscribing, for engaging. Listen, the facts are the facts, and sometimes the truth hurts, and people don't like to hear it, or they just look. We're not always going to say things that everybody agrees with, but at the end of the day, these are the facts, and nobody knows what happened here. We're all just spitballing and speculating. But at the end of the day, it's up to the FBI and the investigators to get this job done, because they work for us. We pay our taxes to have protection from police, local, state, federal, and that's how it goes.
Well, you know, just on the DNA subject, the investigators know they got an unknown DNA profile out of the house. Okay, so it would be law enforcement malpractice if they weren't attempting to get DNA from these suspects that they're detaining.
Right.
Okay, that would be just ridiculous. Okay, whether they get it voluntarily or they get a magistrate to sign off on a warrant to take it forcibly. Okay, it should be done, or they can do it surreptitiously by discarded DNA.
Yeah. And I said that when some of these folks, like especially the first apprehension, when they held him for 8 hours, you know, he needed to drink, you know, he needed to use the bathroom, you know, he needed to have something to eat. And they provided probably all of that for him. Wink, wink. So these are how things get done, folks. It is what it is. I'm going to go from Joe to Ed, and then I'll wrap it up. So Joe, final thoughts on where this case is at, what we got going on. People's heads have been spinning since last night at this time. Everybody, Ed, how late did you stay up last night?
Oh, I don't know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
Yeah, I was up till at least 2 because I was waiting for a press conference. Let's go to Joe. Joe, final thoughts. Where's this case going? What are we looking at? We're in for the long haul here, or what's going on?
I think we're in for for more of these actions, especially when they can start putting everything together and connecting all the dots and everything. But I just want to use my remaining time to just say something. Listen, since my retirement, for 24 years, I've been doing cases like this, and I've been doing it for the press. But the one thing I always kept in my heart, and I still do it to this day, and you guys have been doing it on your show, is keeping it real and understanding that I think like a cop. I act like a cop because I am a cop. You have to understand that when we bring something to the public and they don't understand it, it's our job to explain it. But you have to understand we're going to give you every aspect of a case, whether it's good or bad. It's bad. Look for law enforcement. We're still going to bring it to you. But I never let the journalistic end of this, complicate anything that the cops are doing. And I still carry that to this day because I put myself in their shoes. I in their shoes, and I would never want to compromise somebody's case. And if sometimes you have your viewers that go out there and they step up and they help these cases, that's a plus 10 times over. So just understand when you have people that say that, you're not backing the blue or anything like that, you're doing the best service for the blue and for everybody else that represents them.
Amen to that, brother. Very well said, Joe. Ed, final thoughts. What are we looking at here? Crime scene guru, Ed Wallace. Thank you for joining. I know you were tired tonight.
Yeah, no, I took a antihistamine and it kind of knocked me out a little bit. And so my wife started yelling, "You better get on there and help Ron." And
I was doing okay. I didn't need the help, but I always
no, you know how she is.
Yeah. Of
All
course.
right. But anyhow, so that said, you know, we don't know all the evidence they have. Okay. I'm hoping they have far more evidence than we know. Okay. For digital forensics, cell phone information. I hope they get some more video images off those cameras that they grabbed. Then they, I don't know what they got off those vehicles yesterday. I hope they were able to get, download all the infotainment systems and all the information off all the vehicles involved, the delivery truck, the private vehicle of Carlos, this Range Rover, and downloading, I see the Celebrite cases, so hopefully they're downloading all the information off these phones and putting that through the system. I know they're waiting on DNA. I know the gloves went to the lab in Florida, so hopefully we get something back on those gloves, exterior and interior of the gloves, the DNA and so forth, and then get that information into CODIS, and then also get the profiles of all these people that have been detained and compare it to the suspect DNA recovered from the interior of Nancy's house, and then any other DNA that might pop up. Say, I'm praying that they get it from those gloves, and then we can get some good leads here, or maybe at this point in time, then maybe we can identify the suspect. Hopefully, they're in, if they're in CODIS.
Yeah, the men and women in the FBI and the complete task force that's involved in this massive manhunt, dragnet, whatever you want to call it, are working tirelessly, night and day. As even the sheriff said it from the beginning, some of these folks haven't been home to see their families in days. And Joe, you know, as a boss as a commander in some of these squads, you know the hard work that gets put into this stuff. So I send strength, prayers, and positive vibes and safety to all the brothers and sisters in blue that are out there, and to all the sleuths that are out, boots on the ground. Be safe, be careful. There's lots of rattlesnakes. There's all different kinds of endangered wildlife. There are people that are on TikTok and on YouTube that are trying to bring coverage night and day, and they're out there putting their lives in danger. So I send them also prayers and strength. If for those of you who want to become a free channel member, I'm going to gift out 20 memberships at this time. It's our gift to the community. And for those of you who are new, please consider subscribing. It's free. But if you're interested in a free membership, put a number 1 in the chat. If you're not yet a member, put a 1. I'm going to send out 20. I'm going to charge Ed Wallace's credit card, though. So Ed's going to pay. And maybe the next time we'll get Joe's and he'll pay, and then I'll pay the next round. But anyways, it looks like a lot of people want to try to get a free membership, because tomorrow afternoon we're going to do a members only live Q&A where we'll actually have you come up on screen like this and ask us questions about this case. So that'll be an open kind of like, an open discussion, a round table, community round table with our people, and you get to ask us questions. Ed, I know you're waiting to do that. You can't wait. You're like ready to fall asleep. So let's do it.
I don't know with this coffee now.
Ed, you got the thing?
Oh, I left my cell phone upstairs. Hold on, I can get it here. Hold on.
Blow it out your ass! Blow it out your ass!
Excuse me, Ed. I didn't mean that.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Stop breathing down my neck.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me get the.
Go ahead. Make my day.
All right. I got all the toys here, Joe. You didn't hear that many times with us. We're trying to be serious about it. All right, here we go. You got it? Ready?
Hold on. Let me get it.
Come on, I already did it. I already pulled the trigger. It's over.
Oh, you already pulled the trigger? I hate when that happens.
Yep. I prematurely pulled the trigger, Ed. That's always a problem, right?
Blow it out your ass!
All right, folks. This has been an extended live stream on a Saturday night. Thank you to Joe. Thank you to Darrin, Dr. Darrin Porcher, who's on location. Ed, did you see? We were out in front of Nancy's house. Joe, Darrin Porcher was live from Ed doesn't know if he's coming or going. He's putting his ear thing in. Thank you to Darrin, who for giving us a live footage from in front of the location. Thank you to Joe, my good friend, my brother, my fellow NYPD brother in blue. And coincidentally, Joe, I don't think you knew this, but Darrin and I were in the same company in the academy, and we sat next to each other in the class. So you had the assigned seats. We sat right next to each other. And when we would do that 1.5 mile run in the gym and you get the shin splints in your, from running, Darrin would always be like, come on, Licardi, get your ass moving. Let's go. No dropping out. And I never dropped out in the run. So
wait. You had Darrin on the show?
Yeah, he was here in the opening. I
missed that.
Out in front of Nancy Guthrie's house, reporting live. He was doing a Fox hit. But
nice.
Time for me.
Ron, 10 seconds. I got to tell you something really funny about Darrin. It's Darrin, Oscar Odom, and myself with Steve Ducey in the morning for Fox and Friends. And we're over there, and they're both doctors, Dr. Oscar Odom, Dr. Darrin Porcher. And Steve goes, Joe, we got to get doctor on a title doctor for you. So I said, I am a doctor. He goes, you are? I said, yeah, I'm a proctologist. I deal with assholes all day long, Steve. And Steve lost it. He thought it was funny. Darrin, puts that big smile on and everything, but you got to remember something. It goes back a long way with us.
Us cops have a good sense of humor, and we have to do that. It's sort of our coping mechanisms, right?
Yeah, right. That's
Super
right.
Blue, thank you for gifting 10. Amp BB2, thank you for gifting 10. Ed, thank you for gifting with your credit card 20 memberships. Welcome all new members. We'll catch you all tomorrow. If you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing. Again, I want to end it always by saying strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the Guthrie family, to all of the investigators that are out there, to the community, the people who are scared right now. There are a lot of seniors that are worried, sick about this, not only for Nancy that are friends with her through the church, but community members are worried, sick, and they're scared inside their homes because they don't know what's going on here. And it is an uncomfortable situation. So on behalf of all of us here, we thank you for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow on the next live stream. Peace from New York. Thank you.